There it is. Welcome to Tea Time with Drake and Christine.
Oh.
That was not a good sound.
That was not very chinky.
Yeah, it sounded like a breaking.
Clanky.
Yeah. Anyway.
Did you say breaky?
Breaky. Yeah.
I don't think my cup is chipped, but we're good.
So, today we're going to talk about how to support your partner and yourself through your patterns. And this is like so key to a relationship just in general, because what happens in most relationships is people have their patterns. They go into their patterns automatically.
Okay, so maybe what do you define as a pattern?
Okay, so let's define a
Give
pattern.
an example
Okay,
or
good.
something.
A easy to define pattern would be when someone raises their voice, and then, like, let's say someone wants to get their way, they raise their voice, one person in the relationship, and the other person cowers because that's their pattern. So one pattern is that the first person raising their voice. The second pattern is the
other person like suppresses and like
exactly.
Yeah.
Or it could be someone raises their voice, you
the
raise your
other
voice
person.
back.
Yeah.
You know, but either way, it's not conducive to the relationship.
Yeah.
And it's just like it becomes a battle within the relationship.
Like an energetic battle of
Right.
like who can get
Right.
them, who can manipulate the other person more, or to get their way, or to be right,
Yeah.
or something.
That's an example of a pattern. Another pattern could just be like not doing things when you say you're gonna do them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm gonna go do this. Oh yeah. Or just ignoring your partner. All that shit. It's all a pattern that you play into, where, or people play into, where you're not supporting yourself or your partner. And this is why we say getting into a relationship is the ultimate reflection of personal development.
Yeah.
Because your partner reflects to you and points out to you, hey, you're doing this.
Exactly.
And then you have an opportunity to change it if you're actually serious about developing yourself to the best level that you could possibly be.
Yeah. And it's interesting to note, especially in relationships, that a pattern playing out, whether it be like during an argument, and because anyways, this is actually the point, it's always like a breakdown of some form of communication, because it's either like maybe your pattern is also that you hold back sometimes, you don't actually say what's on your mind, and then you end up building up all this resentment towards your partner, and then one day just like, you know, the straw that broke the camel's back, and you just like unleash everything, and they're just like, whoa, like where's all this coming from? And they're like, well, you haven't noticed, you know what I mean? Like classic, right?
Such a good one.
So yeah, so is what we mean by patterns, like where you start playing out certain characters because, I don't know, you're trying to like communicate something and someone's not being understood effectively, or like,
generally speaking, those patterns come from like this belief or idea that you have because of something you saw in your past.
Yeah, usually like what you saw within relationships in childhood, how you grew up.
Yeah.
Like patterns that you developed maybe to
I'll give you a really like classic example for a lot of guys is thinking you have to be this sort of player guy, or like that you have to put on some sort of persona that I'm cool and
to get a girl.
Exactly.
Kind of thing? Yeah.
Or within the relationship, like, oh, just being macho and cool and just not actually listening to your partner.
Right.
Or here's a
being
really
like aloof.
Being aloof, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's another really good one is in a relationship, feeling like when your partner's pointing something out, that they're attacking you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's
right?
A classic one too.
And a lot of times, to be fair, in a lot of relationships, that is actually what's happening.
Yeah.
Because they're not on the same purpose. They're not on the same goal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and like obviously like think about, that's a good one, because also as you're going through school with your parents growing up, like when someone would point out something that maybe they didn't like about us, what's our first reaction to that? Either to like get defensive,
That's
justify,
true.
You know, like, so then you end up just playing that out within your personal relationship because it's like you're getting to know someone intimately. So it's like you don't necessarily hold back from not doing these things because that's all you really know.
Yeah, and here's the really key point here. Really key point is the reason why someone would get defensive is because they believe that they can't change.
Yeah.
Or you're pointing out something that is about them rather than like something that within what we're doing with our purpose, our agreements, the way that we've structured our relationship, whenever you point something out to me, I know that's something I have to change.
Yeah. Or at least consider and look at for yourself.
Right.
Right.
And be honest about.
Yeah.
But not just defend and justify and dig in my heels.
Yeah. Exactly.
And
and same thing for myself. Too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But how do you support your partner through those patterns? Is one, you have to be first off, you have to make the decision in yourself and in your relationship that you're going to do what's best, or that you're going to
just like want to change, right? You want to become like that
you want to become your best version of you.
Yeah, exactly.
But you want to become best.
But you're serious, like you're self-honestly serious that you actually want to change, and you are willing to do whatever it takes to change.
Yeah.
Now, not to say that change, to make that decision is easy after that, because it does take a lot of like, taking a step back and really reflecting and assessing yourself and being like, okay, how can I commit myself to change this thing?
Yeah.
Right. But
that's super, super important, because otherwise you're going to have a hard time supporting your partner through their patterns if it's just like, well, he just does this thing. And I want him to change that. It's like, well, how is he going to know that you're supporting him to be his best if it's just like the superficial thing of just like, oh, well, I just don't like it when he does this thing, or he gets shy sometimes, or defensive, or whatever.
Right.
It's like, okay, but if you have a purpose, a goal in mind, like you guys are heading to this point together, you both know that it's stated, it's agreed upon, then you can actually support toward that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just like, I just want you to be better. For what purpose?
Yeah. And then it becomes this like game of like, you have this expectation that you have of the person that then becomes a point of control.
Yeah.
Right. So either person is just trying to control that person to be like, well, I like expect you to do this and do that.
Right.
And we're seeing like, I mean, now it's like insane, like how much that is a thing now of like people just trying to control everyone to be like the person that they expect them to be, and not actually then realize that no one's perfect at all. Everyone's got shit to work through. Everyone needs to like actually look at themselves and be like, okay, how can I be different? Because a lot of what's accepted now is like completely unacceptable.
Yeah.
So the way to act and be in a relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
Right. So, so I think just really to like put it clearly, being on the same page with your partner is fundamental. And
First
agreeing and like having, or at least knowing, why are you even together?
Yep.
Right? Like that's so important, because then you actually have like, okay, like what are we doing? Where do we want to go? And what steps can we do to get there?
And
right?
Because I love you is not the answer. I mean, it may be your answer, but that's not an answer that's like tangible. Exactly. It's not an answer that if you're actually wanting to support your partner, support yourself, develop effectively, because I love you, well, that's like it's really focused on emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
And energy, which can change, which is volatile.
Yeah, it's like energy, like those types of feelings, even though like it's not necessarily that you don't love that person all the time, it's just that you're not always in that feeling per se, right? Yeah. It's like, even though, you know what I mean, like, it's not, and that like that feeling is like a fleeting moment. Yeah. Usually, right?
But here's like the thing within that of like the feelings and emotions is you can ask somebody to do something, they change, they start doing that thing, and then you realize like, fuck, I actually preferred it when you were doing the other thing.
Right.
You know? And so if you're just asking for change based on your feelings, that's not going to go anywhere.
Right.
You're going to annoy the fuck out of each other.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. So, yeah. So just being on the same page. Second thing would be like, obviously if you're on this, or it should be obvious at least, that if you're on the same page and you're both willing to support each other to become, you know, the best versions of each other, or of yourselves, and then also you independently wanting to do that change, because that, even though that person can point that out to you, you have to then actually like do the work to change that, right, within the relationship. So you also being willing and teachable and you know, willing to, I don't know, like let go or change or do something, because if you want things to change in your life, you got to change things in your life, right?
You have to change things in your life. That's right.
And then maybe like, what would be like the last thing that to support your partner to change or break their patterns?
All right, so you've got the same purpose, and you're willing to change. They're willing to change. And then it's just like looking at, okay, what is this that I'm doing? How is this actually stopping us from our stated goals or desires? What needs to change about it? Being honest about it, really.
Yeah, literally, that's the point. Like being brutally self-honest.
Yeah.
Like actually, like being like, where am I? Almost like where am I lying to myself?
Yeah.
And kind of like justifying, like, oh, like this is okay or something, or this is just the way that I am. That's a good one, right? Where you have to really like look at like, okay, like even though this may be the way that I am, is it actually like supportive or good or the best thing? Most of the time it's probably not. So being brutally self-honest and being okay with that, right? And specifically with ourselves, like we have specific tools that support us to actually like work through all of that, and then become very clear of like, okay, I've basically forgiven myself for everything that I've accepted and allowed till this moment. And now, okay, what's the new thing that I want to start implementing, and then having that process as well to like actually set that into motion.
Yeah,
right?
It's cool to be able to walk with someone who is growing with you.
Yeah.
And so, okay, mistakes can be made.
100%.
But then, at the same time, it's like, okay, let's keep going. Like, all right, new thing. Refresh. Let's go. Right. And that's really the kind of environment that you want to foster for your family, for your partner, for your children. Because when your children are growing up, they're going to make mistakes. But okay, mistake was made. Here's the correction. Let's keep going.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And that's really what we want to create for our families and for, hey, your family too. You know, you're listening to this. If you don't have that yet, that's something that you want, you're looking for, reach out, send me a message on Facebook. It's in the comments, or in the description rather. And yeah, we'll see you guys on the next video.
Remember to like and subscribe.
Do that.